What about energy transition? Now we've been discussing this, and there is a lot of evidence which says, look, things are moving in the right space. But let's look at solar. The cost of production 10 years ago, 15 rupees a unit. It's come down to 3 rupees a unit. Wind has not been that successful. I see that everybody is talking about energy transition, which is real. Do you think energy transition is real? If yes, how will India maximize?
Yeah, so today, for example, you have 86% of our dependence on 86% of our dependence on oil. You have 60% dependence on gas, and you have 15% dependence on coal. So for India, actually, forget everything else, and the economy, you track it better than I do.
No, sir.
Right?
Deloitte does everything at.
But just think the little bit of volatility in the oil price, $100 plus, starts giving us shocks. So in some sense, moving away to some of that, and we are seeing when the big players start investing in renewables, and when they invest at scale, and I keep talking about scale, the reason is, even with companies as well as otherwise, that brings down the cost, that brings in a lot of efficiencies, economies of scale. You're able to do a lot more things. So that transition is, there's a lot of investment actually happening, including in hydrogen as well. In fact, interestingly, in hydrogen, for 5 metric tons of hydrogen vis-a-vis 40 metric tons of fossil fuel, you'll create more jobs in hydrogen.
Oh, wow.
सपनों की नाव लेके चलूं मैं साथ में तू हो मेरे क्योंकि तू खास है ये एहसास है सांसों की तरह तू दिल के पास है
70 years of trusted care backed by science and innovation.
क्योंकि तू खास है
Well, the year 2023 has been a year of twists and turns, but it's also been a year of records. Stock markets surged to a new high. Number of demat accounts, new high. Bitcoin, new high. And it's a new high also for Deloitte India. Why are they making new high? Why are there no new lows but only new highs for Deloitte India? How things are progressing for India Inc., which in a sense has managed to really first survive the COVID storm, then revive, and now they are flourishing. What are the big trends for 2024? What will differentiate India from the rest of the world? Now, there are a lot of answers which need to be stitched together. And when you have to stitch a lot of big questions, you need a special guest who's perhaps made the word magic look easy when it comes to his tenure at Deloitte India. It gives me great pleasure to bring on board Romal Shetty on ET Now to talk about the year gone by and more importantly, the coming year for Deloitte India. Thank you very much for joining us. Such a pleasure.
Thank you, Nikunj. Thank you so much.
I always like the vibe of this office, lovely colors, and just been a colorful year, I guess, for everybody.
It has been, I think, 9 months into this role. I think it has been lots and lots of changes, lots of things happening, but also just a privilege to be leading the firm. So at this point of time, because I think this is the best time to lead in India. So just been very lucky.
Your predecessor said the same also.
So what it means is that I think overall the trend from an India perspective, moving ahead is not just now, but it has been set, the base has been set for some time, and I think the takeoff is happening in a few areas, and a significant takeoff is happening.
The fact that this decade belongs to India, India is doing rather well, there seems to be widespread acknowledgement. But why is India doing well? Is India doing well because the world is doing badly?
No, I think India is doing well because some of the fundamentals within the country are strong. I mean, there is largely in the past we've been dependent on exports, we've been dependent on outside, but our own captive consumption within the country has also been doing okay. So if you look at corporate India, for example, their earnings are pretty good. Their debts have come down dramatically. If you look at our financial institutions, that is again significant. I mean, and there are a few things that are quite significant which have all added up. I don't think it's a point in time that India is doing well. But if you look at, for example, our transportation, we used to travel 250 to 300 kilometers a day in terms of the trucks, the freights. Today, the same thing, 6 years back, pre-GST. 6 years hence, now it is at 600 kilometers, right? And if you look at the world leaders, which is the US typically, they are about 800. So they were 800 then also, but we've moved from 250 to 500 to 600. So really fantastic. And there are key reasons also, right? GST, while everybody talks about the tax collection, obviously, which has been phenomenal, but it has contributed to this. That means there's more transparency in the truck moving. The interesting thing is, not only have they made ease of business, they have helped the environment, but also they're self-funding. They're not taking money from elsewhere. They're self-funding the building of the new infrastructure. And that infrastructure, and a very fundamental aspect of India is infrastructure, road, ports, ships, that kind of infrastructure, combined with electrification, which I think is very, very essential. Today now India is largely electrified. Two, for example, the mobile, which is always there, but now mobile enabling some of this, and finally the digital payments, the payments. That four confluence has been tremendous, which is sort of all of that now has started leading to better things for the economy, better things. Inflation is reasonable. All right, so I think all of those things making India, much better than I think progressively compared to anywhere in the world. Anywhere else, it's a little bit of a gloom and doom. But India, the energy, the interest is really high.
Okay, India is 4 trillion, we could be 5 trillion. What we debate is whether it's 2 years or 3 years. But we are part of a global, pond. And that global pond is not exactly in a good shape. So can we grow when others are not growing? A simple question.
Yeah. So obviously there is a coupling happening with global, so there are going to be impacts. But I think the global impact, for example, is not a long-term phenomenon. It's a short-term phenomenon, and things will come back to fruition. Second, also from a global perspective, what happens, and it's interesting that if you look at the last maybe 25, 30 years, whenever recession has hit more countries, interestingly, India has always grown.
Yes.
India has always grown.
So you have 100,000 employees right now. That
120.
makes you 100,000. 1,20,000.
1,20,000. Deloitte in India.
Deloitte
yes.
in India, right? You are looking at adding about 50,000 more in less than 3 years.
3 to 4 years.
3 to 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Broadly, that means you are expanding at a rate like never before. If I look at the rank sheet of the big four, you've taken a giant leap forward. You're just closing on to number one. It's all happening in last 3-4 years for Deloitte India. Why? What are you doing so differently?
Yeah, one, I think, we were, one of the big focus area had to move into doing large transformation projects for clients, right? So, instead of the point solutions that we probably did a little bit more, we're now doing large scale solutions across corporate India, but also across the globe. So we are participating in some of the biggest transformation projects. So the largest digital transformation program in the world for an energy major is actually 80% driven in India. So that is also something that is significantly changing. Second is skills, right? The amount of focus that we now have on AI, and not AI when it's of course become a buzzword, but we invested in AI much ahead of time. We invested in cloud much ahead of time. Cyber, we pretty much do some of the most significant institutions of national importance in the country. The cybersecurity is done by Deloitte. So some of these are now really sort of propelling us in a much larger way as well. And our business model also was in the past as consultants what we call as imagine, deliver, right? So we would imagine something, the strategy phase, deliver is deliver. But now we've also moved to a phase called run. That means I will run a particular portion of your business. So let's assume marketing analytics, right? We will do the marketing analytics for any top-end FMCG company, right? Including branding, including other things, which is also a little bit different from in the past, right? Where we've been associated more from a tax and audit and other things. So those kind of things is where we've changed some of the trajectory.
So for our audience, if folks who want to understand whether it's the right time to look at IT? Will IT be the main core, mainstay? Do you think the bigger companies will become bigger, or there is going to be serious challenges which would be at play? And I'm going to just break it for our viewers. When I started my career, India's biggest IT company was TCS, followed by Infosys, Wipro and HCL Tech. The pecking order has not changed, and a lot of technology has changed. Do you see this time, because of AI, the pecking order could change? Something new will happen. So the pond will grow, but those who would be part of the pond will also change.
Yeah. So some of the major companies that we actually have are fairly well run, professionally well run. So they will continue to remain. But the important thing for them is to be how agile and flexible are they, and how fast they can move, because some disruptions can be quite serious. But I think in this round of development, you will see a lot more smaller companies also make a big splash. You will see some with some key niche technologies, for example, are able to make that big impact, and you will see some of the ones that you saw 10 years back now, but in a much faster way, get to $1 billion, get to $2 billion much faster than probably 10, 20 years back. So, and we see some of those real gems coming out of India.
The tech world is dominated by, whether you want to call them big tech, you want to call them famous for, Microsoft and the Googles. Is that going to be the pecking order everywhere, that the large companies will be the dominant ones?
So one of the things, Nikunj, we had done a study some time back, of course, captured the 30 most successful companies in the world.
Over time?
Over time, over 30 years.
Okay.
30 years, before really the tech revolution became tremendous. So you can say 1980 to 2010 kind of a study. So the study...
1980 to 2010.
Kind of a thing, right?
Point.
So around that range.
That captures the both of Microsoft and Apple.
Yeah. So three things that happened at that time. They said that any company which has a very unique IP, which is not easy to copy, right? So that was one thing that for a successful company, those 30 they studied. The second one was, it was technology enabled, even when those days you're talking about tech not being so big. Third is scalable. It had to be scalable. If someone followed this three, I'm just distilling it to a very simple thing, they have been fairly successful. So when you have a particular scale, right, then you're able to make your big bets, you're able to put things into places where you're able to acquire companies, for example. You have deep balance sheets, so you're able to do some of those things that other companies can't. But also, sometimes the bigger you are, the harder you fall. So if you don't change with times, and especially in tech, you don't change with times, you could be yesterday's company.
What about energy transition? Now we've been discussing this, and there is a lot of evidence which says that, look, things are moving in the right space. But let's look at solar. The cost of production 10 years ago, 15 rupees a unit. It's come down to 3 rupees a unit. Wind has not been that successful. I see that everybody is talking about energy transition, which is real. Do you think energy transition is real? If yes, how will India maximize?
Yeah, so today, for example, you have 86% of our dependence on 86% of our dependence on oil. You have 60% dependence on gas, and you have 15% dependence on coal. So for India, actually, forget everything else, and the economy, you track it better than I do.
No, sir.
Right?
Deloitte does everything at...
just think, the little bit of volatility in the oil price, $100 plus, starts giving us shock. So in some sense, moving away to some of that, and we are seeing when the big players start investing in renewables, and when they invest at scale, and I keep talking about scale, the reason is, even with companies as well as otherwise, that brings down the cost, that brings in a lot of efficiencies, economies of scale. You're able to do a lot more things. So that transition is, there's a lot of investment actually happening, including in hydrogen as well. In fact, interestingly, in hydrogen, for 5 metric tons of hydrogen vis-a-vis 40 metric tons of fossil fuel, you'll create more jobs in hydrogen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you'll create more. And the fact is, there is also now looking at how do you export energy? right? Or in the past, it's physical distances, but can you now export energy over a long period of time? Can you store power, right?
That's power pumps have come.
Power firms have come. So I think there's a lot advancement actually happening there. India is definitely I think the government definitely is focusing a lot more on energy and energy transition, and it is important. I mean, it will take time. 2070 is, of course, what we've said is net zero, because there are some other compulsions that we need to do it, but we're on the right path for energy transition.
Okay. So let me divide this decade into 3 parts, and if you can just call out for us your big trend for 3 years, your big trend for 5 years, and your big mega trend till 2020. So 3 saal mein, where do you see growth, investment, and opportunity? And remember, we're a stock market channel. Everything our viewers would like to connect with stock markets, and a consultant giving big trends is something is just music to their eye. That's what I'm trying to connect. So 3 years, the rate of change investment could be high. 5, and one mega trend, which do you think is going to be like in compounder trend, but large investments will happen by the time we reach 2030?
Yeah, so in 2 or 3 things. First is in terms of technology, as I've said, I've spoken a little bit about it, I won't speak more about it, but the fact is that investment in technology from a futuristic perspective is absolutely necessary. So I think that is going to continue, and India has the talent. The second bit that we are seeing is manufacturing. We are clearly seeing a lot more traction happening, at least in my career. I've been now 26, 27 years in the business. 47.
Oh, 47, heading Deloitte India. Must be youngest?
Well, yeah, I think yes, one
Touch
of the youngest.
So
in this time, the number of foreign multinational companies wanting to come and invest in India, and not just traditional, maybe, we look at the US and others, but even countries outside coming in, is at an all-time high. The interest in private equity companies wanting to invest in India, that is at an all-time high. So we are clearly seeing that, and it's not only because India is India is open for business. It's also because of geopolitical. It is also because of supply chain risks, that dependence on only certain parts. I think that is changing dramatically, and as I said, because of scale that only India has compared to others, and of course we've had schemes like the PLI, and we've had those other things. I clearly see an interest in manufacturing.
This is a 3-year trend.
Yeah, this is a 3-year trend, so which will continue, but manufacturing will be longer. A trend that is important and that I see is on the electronics side. Clear interest in electronics. When I say electronics, I include electronic semiconductors, and India is taking that interest. So maybe not in 3 years everything will come in, but the 5-year kind of a period, 5-6 years period, because semiconductors are there everywhere. That will sort of determine what's going to happen. Right?
COVID has taught us the hard way.
COVID has taught us the hard way. So, and in those kind of industries, we are seeing the women workforce in participation going much higher.
Safer to go to car
Safer
factories.
to go electronics. Even in manufacturing, when I say electronics manufacturing, semiconductor manufacturing, of course, maybe we're seeing in other places also, but clearly some of the studies were clear the productivity with women is far higher than men in India.
At Deloitte also?
At Deloitte also. At Deloitte 100%. Deloitte, I can tell you 100%. The productivity of women is more than men. But that is the real thing. And then when we talk about some of the new age things like space and other things that are coming up, right? I do believe that will not give you returns now, maybe 10 years later. But there are a lot of things that you can do in the space. For example, molecule fusion that you can't do on Earth for drugs, you can do it in space. Asteroids, for example, the minerals that they contain, we are struggling with lithium, we're struggling with all that. You can actually have a much more a view on that. So that is an area where I think India is moving now. You're not going to get massive returns, but in the future, it is going to make a difference.
Like financial services is an evergreen theme in India. Financial inclusion is an evergreen thing in India. Per capita binge growth is an evergreen thing in India. What is the evergreen theme of India?
Evergreen theme of India, I think, is just our capability, our youth. We are a young country, but I think there's so many factors, but if there's one thing that I had to point out from my vantage point, is just the youth of this country. if that energy is, we've been fantastic, Nikunj, at doing many things, cheaper, faster, better. We've done it at scale. But I think the innovation bit, if you ask me, that is one thing that is probably missing. But if this energy of the youth is sort of unleashed, my belief is some of the biggest innovations will start happening out of India.
Deloitte India now suddenly is talking about going desi, tier 2, tier 3. And I just want to share this lovely example with our audience here, that if you look at the cricket sword of 1983, it had 9 team members were from big countries, big cities.
Big cities.
And 2011, it was the other way around. So why is that the small towns have become the humming engine of India's growth?
So one, our own experience has been that the tier 2, tier 3 youths seem much more hungrier, seem much more passionate, want to sort of, in some sense, have gone through a little bit of a difficulty, so they want to prove themselves. So we're seeing a lot more, talent. In fact, when COVID happened, we were tracking everybody, all of ours, and we always believed we are a metro city firm, right? Top elite institutions and everything else. We were surprised that 60% of our people came from tier 2, tier 3. They all went back home. They were all from tier 2, tier 3. So it also, and without knowing, it revealed the talent that we actually had. And therefore, then we said, why should we not go there and establish? So we have a program called Heartland. Heartland is about going into the heartland of India and actually working with them. So we're working with Tripura, for example, to get their youths to actually come into our main offices. We're setting up offices in Bhubaneswar, in Coimbatore, for example, right? Because the potential is a lot. The second bit is also, as Deloitte, we've moved to an imagine, deliver, run kind of a thing. And when we have this run where we basically take care of a company's key needs, then establishing at tier 2, tier 3 is also both at a cost level, at a talent level, it makes a lot of sense.
At 46, you're running one of the fastest growing consultancy in India. It's old consultancy, you've made it young. What have you done so differently that you've achieved at 46, which others never could have imagined?
Nikunj, I mean, the roles, positions are a combination of right place, right time, having some great mentors, who sort of helped you, having great team members. And also, in my career, I did many, many different things. So I don't get phased easily by ambiguity. So I'm okay with ambiguity and I'm okay to manage that. And when I've got the opportunity on doing different things, I've always grabbed it. I've never taken a back seat. It's maybe my childhood because my father was a banker. We used to transfer every 3 years. So, you were always in an ambiguous situation of a new school, new thing, everything else. So that sort of helped me. So, but it's time, it's luck, and it's a bit of hard work.
And how do you keep yourself updated? Because from technology to, IT, from fossil fuels to asteroid, everything you have to be, aware of. Because you have to be more aware than the client. That's why the client will hire you. How do you keep yourself upbeat?
So
how much do you read? What do you read?
So I read a lot. I read everything from obviously business magazines to books because I travel a lot. I'm 4 or 5 days a week. I'm traveling, so I read on the planes. That's the only
4
time.
times in a week.
Yes.
A week is 7 days.
Yes.
Okay.
So 4 or 5 times I travel. So I travel quite a bit.
Okay.
But I also make it a point to sort of both listen to a lot of young folks.
Okay.
They come up with something that, I used to think, okay, I know quite a bit of stuff, but, they come up with something. And you drive energy also from that. So you listen to a lot of people, you formulate your own thoughts, you challenge different sets of people. So, and as Deloitte, we have a lot of sector leaders and others. So when you listen to them, you also gain something, but you're also challenging them. So that makes it a good experience. Yeah. So.
Final 2 questions. Are you an approachable boss?
I think so. I think so. And Nikunj, that's been one of the things was, when I took over office, and as professional services firms, we have levels, we have people, and I wanted to break a lot of hierarchies. I wanted to make a lot of that changes to say that people are approachable. Now, the reason was not that, okay, I have a vision. I have a vision that, okay, we have to be, like you said, number 1 firm. I don't want to be a number one firm in India. That's not my real big ambition. My ambition is to be in the top 5 firms in the Deloitte world. Deloitte 65 billion, so I want to be in the top 5.
Where are you right now?
We must be at 15 or 16.
That's the size of the economy. It will change.
It'll change, but you know, I don't want that to define the fact that I can't become, you know, in the top 5, even if the economy will change. But even without that, I want it to change. But also, we wanted to be a much more kind and humane firm, because our life as consultants, our life as basically solution providers to different clients, there's always a lot of stress. So if you can bring a little bit of happiness and joy in whatever we do, I think that will help. And these things that I've, in the first 9 months that I have done, is really to break a lot of hierarchies. So I do a lot of these town halls. It's called Mic's Not Muted. And people ask me any and every question. And if you can ask the CEO any and every question and not get reprimanded, not get anything else, it's important. But I also believe it is important because if the hierarchies are broken, the innovation will come from there. The innovation will not come from me. It will come from them. And that's the bet that I have, you know, that this generation is just, and the coming generation is just super smart.
Yeah, so well articulated. So final question, Deloitte is hiring. If somebody aspires to work for Deloitte, what's the way out? What email they should send you in resume? Maybe this channel can take that message forward.
If you're really passionate, you know, you really enjoy what you do, and you're a very proud Indian, you know,
Deloitte's the way to go.
Deloitte's the way to go. Yes.
Well, Etina's also hiring. But I'll not reveal my age. But Romal has revealed his age at 46, one of the youngest CEO of Deloitte globally of any country. 47.
Yeah.
अच्छा 46 में बने थे.
हाँ. नहीं मैं 47 में ही बना because मेरा January है. Okay. मैं 47 में ही बना.
Okay, at 47, one of the youngest CEOs globally, I think, for any Deloitte India, you know, business. So congratulations, and touch wood, first 9 months. I mean, you made the impossible look very easy. And here's the promise which I've got from Romal that. We don't have to wait. He'll not wait for next 9 months for the next interview. Perhaps the next one is coming much before that. Thank you very much and best wishes for 2024.
Thank you, Nikunj. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.